Hi knitting friends, Shaina here. In today's video, I am going to show you how to work yarn overs. Yarn overs are lovely little eyelets that are used for many things in knitting. Sometimes you'll use them to make increases on a shawl or a triangular piece like this cowl. Other times you'll use them for decorative lace stitches with matching decreases to make sure your stitches maintain. And sometimes you'll use them to make buttonholes. So let's get into it. Before I show you how to make a yarn over, I'd like to remind you how knitting is done. When we knit a stitch, we go in and watch the way my hand wraps around the needle. My hand comes around the needle in a counterclockwise way. That's how I wrap the yarn for knitting. And then I come out of the stitch from the left-hand needle and discard it. A yarn over is that action of wrapping the yarn around the needle that you typically do when you are knitting a stitch, except you do it without having your needle inside of a stitch. So again, when we knit a stitch, you go into the stitch and the yarn is wrapped counterclockwise around. When I say counterclockwise, that means the yarn is starting here at 3 o'clock. I move it to 12 o'clock. 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock back to 3. And then it comes out and off. So a yarn over is that same counterclockwise wrap, this, around the needle. That's it. That's all a yarn over is. It's not doing anything else but wrapping the yarn around the needle. Your pattern will tell you what to do next after you've made a yarn over. Here I'm just knitting 2 stitches. And just so you're aware, I started with 10 here, okay? So now I'm going to do another yarn over. Again, just wrapping the yarn around the back of the needle and towards the front. And then you do whatever your pattern tells you to do next. Sometimes it's a decrease, sometimes it's knitting, sometimes purling. Yarn over. So again, the yarn, I'm going to unwrap it, starts at 3 o'clock, goes to 12, 9, 6, and back to 3, and that's a yarn over. You can see on the needle I've got these loopy stitches here. Those are my yarn overs. All right, I'm going to knit these 2. And then I'm going to yarn over again. So again, another way to think of this, if the counterclockwise is making your head spin, bring the yarn to the front of the needles if you're on a knit row. So if you're going from a knit stitch to another knit or knit style stitch, whether that's a knit 2 together or SSK, you bring your yarn from the back of the work in the knit position to the front, and then you start working your next stitch, and that traps the yarn over right there. So many of us make yarn overs as beginner knitters without even realizing we're doing it. So you've probably already made a yarn over in your life. Anyway, so I mentioned before I started here with 10 stitches. I now have 14 because I put in 1, 2, 3, 4 yarn overs, and you can see those little eyelets. I'm going to work 1 row back, and then I'll demonstrate how to work yarn overs in continental style knitting. Okay, I worked a purl row to give us some space from those yarn overs so you could see them a little bit better. Here are the yarn overs. They're nice little lacy eyelets, and they opened up my piece. If I had paired each of these yarn overs with a decrease, I would still have 10 stitches. So a yarn over adds a stitch while making a nice little eyelet, a nice little hole. So I showed you how to work yarn overs in English style knitting. Now let's switch to continental. So when you continental knit, you go into your stitch, grab the yarn from behind and pull it through. That's what we're doing when we yarn over. We grab the yarn from behind and drape it over the needle. That is a yarn over. And then you follow your pattern, whatever else you're supposed to do. So yarn over is just bring your right hand needle behind the yarn so that it wraps over the needle like this and creates a new loop between 2 stitches that are already in existence. So yarn over and then keep knitting, or whatever your pattern tells you to do. Again, yarn over is simply the act of wrapping the yarn over the needle between 2 stitches to create a new stitch and or to create an aesthetically pleasing eyelet or little hole in the work for lace. Happy knitting!